Hi Charlie, welcome to the 72nd day of my video polling experiment where I break down and analyze the LinkedIn poll that I posted last week and the close this morning. Now last week's question was one that was a bit more financially oriented than my popular ones about pop culture topics, and that question was, what do you think will happen with interest rates this year? There were three answer choices: increase, decrease, and stay the same. Much to my surprise, this poll accrued 89 votes, which is right in line with my average of 80 to 85 votes per poll, even though this question was definitely a bit more on the technical side than the ones that I usually post. And the reason that interest rates, which are controlled by the Federal Reserve, are so important is because increasing the interest rates often indicates that the Fed is trying to slow the economy down a little bit, prevent it from overheating, while lowering interest rates usually means that the Federal Reserve is trying to boost the economy by making it cheaper to borrow money, and stay the same kind of means that the Federal Reserve is trying to maintain the status quo. So anyway, I was really interested to see this distribution, and it definitely did not disappoint. 48% of the 89 voters said they think that interest rates will increase this year, while 34% of these voters said that they think interest rates will decrease. 18% of them thought that the interest rates would stay the same. Now, as for me, I'm honestly not sure what direction the economy will go in by the end of the year, nor am I sure about what the Federal Reserve will do to try to keep the economy stable, keep employment as high as possible, mitigate inflation as much as possible, so I just chose stay the same. It's kind of the status quo conservative answer. So anyway, onto some statistics about the Federal Reserve and what they're thinking about doing with interest rates. The Tuesday before last, the Federal Reserve kept interest rates between 4.25 and 4.5%. The Fed anticipates that U.S. GDP will increase by 1.7% this year. Now this sounds pretty good, but this is also 0.4% less than the Federal Reserve predicted in December of 2024, which is just 3 months ago. The Federal Reserve projects that inflation will increase by 2.8% this year. Their target goal is for inflation to increase by about 2% this year, and they're obviously a bit off in this regard. And this 2.8% anticipated inflation rate is 0.3% higher than the 2.5% inflation rate the Fed predicted last year, which again, maybe not the best sign, so GDP growth will be a little less than anticipated, and inflation will be a bit higher than anticipated, which might ring some warning bells for a stagflation, which is stagnating economic growth paired with inflation, which is never really good for anyone. Now, mortgage rates as of March 20th, 2025, which is 11 days ago, are still sky high. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate is 6.67%, and the 15-year fixed mortgage rate is 5.83%. So now might not be the best time to buy a home, for instance, because you'll have to be paying those relatively high interest rates. But then again, waiting for those interest rates to decrease back to 4% might be a bit unrealistic unless you have a really long time horizon for purchasing that home and you have enough time to kind of wait around for things to maybe improve a little bit. But there are plenty of people who are taking the leap into home ownership despite these high interest rates, because I suppose they anticipate that building home equity now is better than trying to build home equity later when interest rates may or may not be lower. So anyway, Charlie, thank you for listening to my little spiel about the Federal Reserve and interest rates. And before I go, I would like to show you the poll as it appears on LinkedIn, just to prove that I am not making this distribution up. I don't think I could have even had the imagination to do so. So here goes. Here is the poll as it appears on LinkedIn. As you can see, it got 89 votes, and the most popular answer choice, but not a majority, was that 48% of my voters thought that interest rates would increase this year, which is not necessarily a good sign. Well, maybe it is if you think that the economy is doing so well that it needs to be slowed down, but interest rates are already quite high, so I'm not entirely sure what this indicates about the economy. I'm not an economist. I'm just reciting some statistics that I found online and analyzing this distribution of voters that I received, which is mostly based on the sentiment and feelings of my wonderful voters. So thank you everyone who contributed to this poll. I really appreciate the engagement, and I appreciate that this got an average number of votes despite it being a pretty technical financial question. So thank you everyone who participated. Anyway, Charlie, thank you again for listening to my little spiel about interest rates in the Federal Reserve, and stay tuned tomorrow for my 73rd poll analysis. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.